Paleo is a really fun deck coming into the 2018 February Forbidden list, mainly because of its main ability to completely disrupt the opponent's resources. But even more importantly, this deck provides its own sort of suave, not being necessarily an anti-meta like deck, but a deck that can afford to play anti-meta cards and not lose its consistency. You can just say that this card is leapfrogging the meta. Get it? Leapfrog meta, because it's a frog deck. I'm TheCaliEffect, and if you guys want to see more videos like this, go ahead and destroy that subscribe button. But more importantly, you can probably totally awesome, because you're awesome, that notification bell, because we're just too strong. Without further ado, I present to you a competitive Paleozoic frog deck profile for the 2018 format, and yes, of course, we have those budget options. Okay, so looking at the frog stats, this deck does look like it leaves a lot to be desired. Its attack, not so great. Its defenses aren't so great. The frog monsters aren't really stronger themselves, and the Paleozoics don't help in the strength category. But where this deck comes up, in fact of its deficiencies is its consistency, its ability to create boards that your opponent just can't surmount through its raw power, and the fact that it does have those anti-meta-like elements. So getting right into the deck profile, we're going to start talking about the frog monsters. We run 3 copies of Swap Frog, 3 copies of Doop Frog, and 2 copies of Ronnie Boy or Ronin Totem. Now, apologize if I can't say his name completely correct, but basically, what Swap Frog does is when it's normal summoned or special summoned, it allows you to send 1 frog monster from your deck to your graveyard. Now, a lot of people say that this is the most important frog, and I have to agree, because its other effect is if you can discard 1 water monster, you can special summon it to your side of the field. So he is almost essentially a 1-card engine, allowing you to send all of your aqua monsters or level 2 or lower aqua water monsters from your deck to your graveyard. Now, his last effect is that you can gain the additional normal summon of a frog monster, but you can only gain that normal summon once per turn, and it can't be Swap Frog, so you're probably not going to be able to get that effect off in this particular build, but you're going to be able to send the frog monsters you need from your deck to your graveyard. On to the next card, we're going to be talking about Doop Frog, and his effect is a lot more simpler than the other Swap Frog, but it does have its complications. When it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add 1 frog monster from your deck to your hand, so if you don't open the Swap Frog, then the Doop Frog is a perfect card to get your Swap Frog from your deck to your hand. It's actually something I want to talk to you guys about, that Doop Frog effect. It does miss timing. It's a when you can effect, so if it isn't the last thing to happen, it won't be able to gain its effect. For example, if you were to use it for a synchro or link summon, you will not be able to gain the effect of Doop Frog, because the last thing to happen is the summon of the monster. Whereas if Doop Frog is destroyed by battle or a card effect such as Dark Hole or Raigeki, or just a monster attacking over it, you would be able to get its effect, since the last thing that happens is it being sent to the graveyard. Another great thing about Doop Frog is that your opponent has to attack this monster before they attack your other monsters. So if you have 2 Doop Frogs on the field, it creates essentially a lock where your opponent just can't attack you. Ronnie Boy is probably the backbone of the frog engine, and it really supplies your Swap Frogs extremely well. So what it does is that you can banish 1 frog monster in your graveyard to special summon it to your side of the field. Unfortunately, he's not a frog monster, so you can't banish Ronnie Boy himself, but you can banish your sent to the graveyard Doop Frogs and Swap Frogs sent to the graveyard through Swap Frog. So it's a pretty good card, and allows you to tutor your Xseed and Link plays. Now, Ronnie Boy can't be used for a synchro summon, but he can be used for Link and Xseed summons, which this deck does very well. That's it for the frog engine, and I hope I explained that to you guys pretty well, despite most people probably knowing what the frog monsters do. Next, we're going to play 2 copies of Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, and I'll be able to explain this card a lot better in detail later, but the thing that you guys should know about Spellbook Magician of Prophecy is that when it's normal summoned or flip face up, you get to add a Spellbook spell card from your deck to your hand, which is great for our draw engine since I decided to cut out Reckless Greed. The next is, I run 2 copies of this card. You guys could find a way to run 3. It's an awesome card. I just don't see the deck being too competitive without it. I'm trying to figure out how frog decks even topped without using this card. 2 copies of Gradle Slime Jr. So basically, when this card is normal summoned, you can target 1 Gradle monster in your graveyard and special summon it to your side of the field, but that's not it. You get to special summon a monster from your hand to your side of the field, the same level of the Gradle monster you special summon to your side of the field with the Gradle monster's effect. So basically, Gradle Slime selects Gradle Slime to special summon the said monster to your side of the field, and then you get to special summon another monster, something like Swap Frog, Doop Frog, Ron and hopefully a Swap Frog to gain its effects again. This card works really well with the deck because this one copy of this plus a Swap Frog and a water monster to send to the graveyard helps you establish some really good boards, which I will show you guys in the combo tutorial slash test hands. Let's just get this video to 100 likes, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I ask you guys for, is 100 likes for the combo tutorial and test hand. You know what? I'll even make it 75 likes and 100 likes and we'll do a duel. Next, for the spells, 2 copies of Spellbook of Secrets and 2 copies of Spellbook of Knowledge. Now this falls completely in line with the Spellbook Magician of Prophecy engine, because the Spellbook Magician of Prophecy searches the secrets, the secret searches the Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, which searches the Spellbook of Knowledge, and basically, essentially, if you give up your normal summon, you get to draw 2 cards. Now I know that doesn't seem like a good proposition, but you only have one real normal summonable monster, and that's Great Slime Jr., and outside that, Swap Frog, while it can be normal summoned, that's probably a card that you don't have in your hand if you're playing the Spellbook route. If not, then go ahead and use Swap Frog and then do all your wacky shenanigans with your Swap Frog. This allows you to dig deeper into your deck and get those necessary pieces that you need. So that's it for the Spellbook spell cards. And then lastly is 2 copies of Pot of Desires. This card is nasty good in this deck because it allows you to draw cards. I mean, literally, I spent all of our spell cards, or all of the spell card room, providing a way to draw cards, mainly because this trap-based deck can go through resources pretty quickly. Now, we can use Pot of Desires Banish Phase Down effect, and I thought that that was pretty good and good enough to warrant running Pot of Desires. Now, I think I've said this, actually, I know I've said this in a video before. Pot of Desires is like that girl you meet in the club. You only want to see her once, and after that one night stand, you never want to see her again. Hopefully, when you activate Desires, you banish your other Desires, and, you know, you draw 2 cards that you really need, which more often than not isn't going to be the second Desire. So that's pretty much it for the spell cards. Now we run a crap ton of traps, 24 traps to be exact. I mean, 12 of them really aren't traps, but they are traps. For the traps, we run 3 copies of Paleozoic Canadia, which I like to call them Paleozoic Cannabis. I really like to think that all of the Paleozoic monsters are based off of some form of drug because they similarly reference those. I just can't figure out which drugs except for this one. Basically, what it does is it can target a face-up monster your opponent controls and change it face down defense position. It's our most important Paleozoic monster, at least effect-wise, mainly because it can disrupt our opponent's monsters before they can make a Link, Synchro, or Xseed play by flipping the monster face down. More importantly, I want to talk to you guys about the Paleozoic second effect, which I won't be mentioning in any of the other Paleozoic cards, is while they're in the graveyard and a trap card is activated, you can special summon these monsters to your side of the field or these trap cards from your graveyard to your side of the field, and they're treated completely as monsters. They are no longer trap cards, meaning that you can practically do whatever you want to. Another thing is that they're unaffected by monster effects, and you get to banish, or you don't get to banish them, but they get banished when they leave the field. Now, you obviously want to use your Paleozoic monsters for Xseed summons as opposed to Synchro summons or Link summons, because then they'll go back to the graveyard as Xseed materials. Next is 2 copies of Paleozoic Dynamicious. Now, this is probably the second best Paleo card and probably would be the best Paleo card if it didn't require you to discard a card, but it allows us to banish opponents' cards that are face up on the field. So Canadia gets the face downs, or gets the monsters to face downs, and Paleozoic Dynamicious banishes all the face ups, including Pendulum Scale, so it's pretty good. 2 copies of Paleozoic Morella, which this card is finding itself more and more viable the longer the meta goes, mainly because it allows us to send a trap card from our deck to our graveyard. Worst case scenario, we can actually send a Paleozoic card from our deck to our graveyard, and if we have other traps, it tutors the Paleozoic card to our side of the field, as well as putting this card to the graveyard, so you have 2 Paleozoic cards in our graveyard. But that's not the real reason. I'll tell you guys a little later why we run this card, because it's pretty essential to the strategy and the way that the meta is developing. Morella is becoming more and more of an important card. 2 copies of Paleozoic Oleindus. Oh my god, I cannot say this card for the life of me. You guys know I have I just can't enunciate certain cards, but basically what this card does is it's our MIST. It allows us to destroy 1 spell or trap card on the field. 1 copy of Paleozoic Lean. Now I know this one is lean and you cannot tell me different. What it does is it allows us to target a banished card and return it to the graveyard, so it works really well with Desires, what I was talking about. The reason being is that it doesn't specify what type of banished card it is, as long long as it's a banish card, so you can look through your face down banish cards and essentially cycle them back into your graveyard, those important cards that you need back into your graveyard, and basically search them out into your graveyard. Now, I only run one copy. I was running two, but you just don't need a second one. It's still a really good card nonetheless. Paleozoic Hallucinogens. What this card does is targets a monster on the field and it reduces attack and 0 by half. And the reason why I play one copy of this card is because, like I said, in the stats, the Paleozoic monsters aren't that strong, and Hallucinogen makes the opponents flip out when they see it. Like, they never see this card coming because most Paleo builds don't play this card, and it's really good for handling over those big monster situations. And then one copy of Paleozoic Pakaya. This was one of my favorite Paleozoics until I read that it needed to discard a Paleozoic card, which kind of sucks because you want most of your Paleozoic cards face down. But what it does is you can discard a Paleozoic card to draw 2 cards. Really good for your dead Paleozoics. Let's say if you open both of these, you can use this to discard this, or if you already have some type of disruption, you can use your Pakaya to not only send your Dino Missions from your hand to your graveyard, but tutor 2 additional cards from your deck to your hand. So that's it for the Paleozoic trap cards. Now we run our protector cards, which is 3 copies of Waboku, and Waboku does an excellent job in this deck. It allows us to protect our Paleozoic trap cards because not only are they unaffected by monsters, now they can't be destroyed by battle, which is most of Yu-Gi-Oh! If your opponent's probably playing a good Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck, they're either going to use their monster effects to destroy it, or they're going to try to attack over it, and Waboku prevents that. It also triggers our Paleozoic cards in graveyard, saying that's a normal trap. Now, the only trap that can't trigger the Paleozoic cards, because the Paleozoic cards must chain to them, are counter traps, which we run 0 up for that specific reason. I want to be able to get off my Paleozoic cards as much as possible. 2 copies of Mistake. I was actually running Mind Crush for a long time instead of Mistake, and the reason being is that Mind Crush just feels so much better inside of the deck. Mainly because it can hit whatever card your opponent searches while you can still search, but Mistake is still a game ender, and then you have to think about Mind Crush. You have to have a card in your hand to activate and resolve Mind Crush, whereas Mistake, it just prevents the opponent from searching and stops them from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! More often than not. Now, 2 copies of Anti-Spell Fragrance. We run 6 spell cards, so Anti-Spell Fragrancing the opponent isn't that much of a bad idea, mainly because we don't have enough spell cards to warrant Spell Fragrance hurting us. Now, the 2 cards, or the 4 cards, that makes Morella really, really good is 2 copies of Lost Wind. Basically, it targets a special summoned monster on the field. Its attack and its effects are negated, and its attack is halved. The reason why this card is so important is because Paleo does have an attacking issue. The fact that your strongest monster will probably be 2700 under the perfect conditions. So anything 2800 and higher completely ruins this deck. Not only does Lost Wind half that monster's attack, but it works so great with Morella because you can send it to the graveyard with Morella to set it to your side of the field, and it's just amazing. 2 copies of Breakthrough Skill. This is the other card that works so well with Morella. A lot of people are making Odd Eyes Vortex, Noritos, just basically a whole bunch of negator cards. So playing Breakthrough Skill is an excellent option. Not only does it negate a monster effect, but its banish effect cannot be stopped by those cards alike. Odd Eyes Vortex, actually I think Odd Eyes Vortex says a card or effect, but it doesn't matter because it'll serve its purpose. But a lot of monsters that say negate the activation means that the card has to activate. Activate is by definition in Yu-Gi-Oh! Being able to activate a card using it from your hand to your side of the field, where the Breakthrough Skill's second effect is being banished from the graveyard. You're not activating Breakthrough Skill in your graveyard, you're using its effect to negate a monster's effect. So cards like Cyber Dragon Infinity, I'm not 100% sure about Odd Eyes Vortex, but I know Norito cannot stop Breakthrough Skills from graveyard, and even if Vortex could stop Breakthrough Skill through graveyard, it served its purpose. And then lastly is 1 copy of Imperial Order. I mean, you run 6 spell cards. A lot of decks run a lot more spell cards, so this card is going to ruin your opponent's day. That's it for the trap cards. And this deck is really, really balanced. I love the way it plays. If you go first, you have almost a really good chance of winning. If you go second, I want to say that it's not an uphill battle, but it is a little harder seeing that you run so many trap cards, but I wouldn't change anything in the deck currently right now. And if you guys want to see a duel video of it, just give it 100 likes. Come on, guys. Let's see if we can get those likes up. So for the extra deck, 3 copies of Totally Awesome. This card is freaking totally awesome. I mean, it's the most awesome card in the deck. It requires 2 two level 2 aqua or 2 aqua monsters. Obviously, they have to be level 2. But basically, during the standby phase, you can detach one material to special summon a frog monster from your deck to your side of the field. Now, sometimes you can special summon Swap Frog, but most of the time you want to special summon Doop Frog to your side of the field, because now they must attack into the Doop Frog or deal with the Doop Frog before they can deal with the Totally Awesome. But even more importantly, it can send one water monster you control to the graveyard to negate the activation of a spell, trap, or monster effect and destroy it. And then you can set that card to your side of the field. So being able to negate your opponent's pivotal effects is probably good, and then taking their card might be even better. The next thing is, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one water monster, so basically any of your monsters, including itself, from your graveyard to your hand. Paleozoic Open Binya is a really good card. The reason why is because it allows you to it allows you to search trap cards from your deck to your hand. It's unaffected by monster effects. You can activate Paleozoic trap cards from your hand, and as long as this card has a trap card as a material, like I said, you can add that trap card from your deck to your hand. 2400 body, and allows us to tutor so many great combos. Now, I'm not even going to attempt to say this card's name. If you guys have seen the older Paleozoic deck profiles, I just start saying damn, I did it again. But this card is freaking phenomenal. It requires 3 level 2 monsters. That's the only reason why we win 1. It's unaffected by opponent's monsters, or opponent's monster effects. You can detach one material. It has to have a trap card as a material to destroy a card on your opponent's side of the field. It's just really good. It's an awesome card. I really like this card, and more often than not, you only need it once. When you summon it, you're going to win the game. One copy of number 45, Crumble Logos to Profit Demolition. This card allows you to negate opponent's monster effects. Daigusto Emerald is really good for attacking twice and finish your opponent off. Cat Shark actually helps us deal with those pesky monster problems. It doubles the original attack of a rank 4 or lower, so basically any of these monsters' attacks can't get doubled. And then Sky Cavalry Centuria to deal with our opponent's other monster threats. Now that's it for the Exceed monsters. This deck does a fairly good job of playing Link monsters. So one copy of Topologic Bomber Dragon. The reason why this card is so good is because every time a Paleozoic monster is summoned to this card's Link, you get to dark hole the entire field, legitimately. So activate a trap card, place the activate the Paleozoic trap card as Chain Link 2, place it in the Topologic Bomber Dragon scale, and then destroy all monsters on the field. But even more importantly, your Paleozoic monsters are unaffected by monster effects, meaning that they get to stay on the field. This card is really good for this deck. One copy of Borolo Dragon. This card's really good at stealing your opponent's bitch. One copy of Sarjuya. I've made this card a couple of times. It's not easy to make, but when you do, it does a really good job at drawing 4 cards and then placing cards to the top or to your deck, allowing you to essentially cycle through the cards that you need, and it's 2800 attack, so it does break our 2700 barrier. One copy of Decode Talker. This card is also really good. I don't summon it as often because we have just better cards to go into. And then 2 copies of Mastar Boy. Your board that you normally want to make is Mastar Boy Totally Awesome, and I'll show that to you guys in the combo tutorial / test hands. That's it for the extra deck. For the side deck, of course, 2 copies of Kaiju the Gamseel Turtle. I probably wanted to mainboard these, but I didn't see a real reason to do so. Basically allows us to tribute our opponent's monster threats and provide a monster to get over them. 1 Raigeki and 1 Dark Hole, obviously for going second and clearing your opponent's board, or helping clearing your opponent's board. 2 copies of Magical Spring. This card is really good against Pendulum Magician and allows us to put Paleozoic cards to our graveyard, so don't sleep on this card. It's really good. 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. This card allows us to destroy spells and trap cards. It's essentially our Twin Twister and allows us to trigger our Paleozoic cards. 2 copies of Mind Crush. This card is the card that I actually been swapping between this and Mistake for. I'd probably say it's a mistake not to play this card in some capacity, and you'll probably crush your opponent's mind when you start declaring evenly matches with this card. 2 copies of Dimensional Barrier. Consequently, I really didn't like if you guys didn't really like any of these cards, you can drop one of them for a 3rd Dimensional Barrier, or even just drop these cards because they're pretty expensive. Is 3 copies of Evenly Matched. This card is bananas with this deck, but I understand if you can't afford them. Now, there isn't too many expensive cards in this deck, and that's what I pride myself on with this Paleo deck, is that it's fairly cheap. What you guys could do is drop the Evenly Matches if you guys can't afford them, obviously, for a 3rd Dimensional Barrier, a 3rd Mind Crush in a third Gamseel Sea Turtle Kaiju, or you can even play the third anti-spell. But the spellbook engine is something that just can't be ignored, something that we have to prepare for inside of this deck. And of course, we have those options. So instead of the spellbook engine, which is essentially 6 cards, obviously Card of Demise is coming inside of the new Kaiba Legendary Collection Kaiba, so we should see a dip in price in that. You guys could run that instead of the spellbook engine, and then play Reckless Greeds to, you know, suffice for that. So 3 Demise, 3 Reckless Greeds, that'll basically, you know, finish off your 6-card engine. But let's say that they're not out right now and you guys are sweating for some cards. So obviously I play 3 copies of Reckless Greed, and you can just follow up with the rest of the cards for another Paleozoic Lean, other Paleozoic trap cards that'll help you. Hell, you can pretty much run whatever you want, because these expensive cards, quote unquote, aren't necessarily the most important thing. Now, they do help the deck be as competitive as possible, but it isn't the end all be all. Thank you guys so much for watching another segment of the Cali Effect. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I have a Patreon for the people that want to see more deck profiles, even videos that are going to start to go up on Patreon that are not ever going to hit YouTube, or probably won't hit YouTube for a while. Also, if we can get to 100 likes, be on the lookout for that duel video. 75 likes and we get a combo tutorial. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about the deck down below in the comment section. But most of all, enjoy.